Hey guys, in this video I'll be telling you about the camera shoot I did with the Canon 1DX Mark II at Rev, my go-to coffee spot here in Baton Rouge, and why I'm doing camera tests with camera gear that's not the latest models available. It's not going to be the typical camera test video, but I hope it'll be helpful nonetheless. Button 1 works. Button 2 works. So far, no surprises on the button front. Well, it's not going to be that different. It's just not going to involve focus charts, color charts, or this thing. Although, maybe if we have some time, we'll do a little bit on hypnosis. No, not in this video. A different video. Nothing wrong with focus charts, color charts, and the like. I watch some of those videos as well. They can be helpful, but they can also get in the way of trying to make something with the equipment. So I thought it would be interesting to reach out to some friends doing some notable things around town and try to make videos out of that, and then talk about what happened with the shoot. So here's the video I made at Rev, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what went into making it and some of the thinking behind this video series I'll be doing. Okay, so some quick background info to set the stage. I work for Canon, providing support for the Cinema EOS line and Canon professional services. From time to time, Canon makes certain equipment available to employees like me so that we can get a better sense of how the gear works in real-world shooting situations. They had a couple of newer items become available for that, and so I put in some requests. To be honest, I thought it was a long shot because I'm working remotely these days, and I figured the equipment would probably go to people in the office, but it didn't hurt to try to ask. So I made some requests. Eventually, Canon did send me a package. To my surprise, it included not just one item I had requested, but 3 of them. I'll tell you a little bit more about what they sent me in just a moment. But now's probably a good time to mention that this video is not sponsored by Canon or made in collaboration with them. It's just my personal observations based on the shooting experiences that I've had with the gear. That being said, this video and a few others I'll be releasing soon came about because Canon sent me some equipment to borrow. So I want to tell you a little bit more about the equipment they sent me and where it falls in the Canon lineup. As I suggested before, most of the Rev video was shot with this guy, the 1DX Mark II. It's quite a powerful camera. One feature in particular that I was keen to test was its ability to shoot 120 frames per second, paired with its professional quality autofocus. 120 frames a second helps capture some of the details that we might normally overlook. And for the sequence I shot, most of the clips were shot at that frame rate and then doing some time remapping throughout. And then pairing that with robust autofocus, something that has become a professional tool in many cases. Sometimes you want to manually focus. When you have actors and you can get them to do the take again and again, that's something to consider. But you don't always have that option. I'll talk a little bit more about this when I go into more of the specifics of shooting the sequence. But part of what we got was just getting what we could get while Rev was still open. So sometimes you want responsive autofocus that can lock in those situations. All right, so for those of you who don't know a whole lot about the Canon DSLR lineup, let me put it in perspective. You're starting out with the digital Rebels, entry-level DSLRs. They're accessibly priced, but versatile. You can get professional quality results with careful exposure. And then a step up from that would be the double-digit series, the 70D, 80D, 90D. A little more versatile. They can shoot a little faster. They have more autofocus options. Step above that, moving to the full-frame sensor cameras like the 6D series, the 5D series. And then at the top, you have the 1D series, like the 1DX Mark II that I was using. It's the flagship in the lineup. At least it was until it was replaced recently. But these 1D series cameras, they're really built like tanks, designed to be used in rugged conditions, Super Bowl, the Olympics, National Geographic shoots. I've even heard stories about them surviving in crazy situations. There's one story I heard, someone was shooting with a 1D series camera, and he was on a mountainside, snow-covered mountainside, and then he's shooting stuff, and then the camera falls, and it falls down several feet, keeps falling down the mountainside. He gets to it a little later and discovers it's still working for some crazy reason. Now, not the recommended use case for that camera. Canon's not going to guarantee that it'll survive, but it might because it's weather sealed, it's magnesium alloy construction, very rugged camera. So you have those cameras on the higher end, and I got to shoot with it. Pretty neat. So this guy, a workhorse, a tank, whatever tough guy metaphor you want to throw, or, elegant ballerina if that's how you prefer, but can handle pretty much anything you'll throw at it. Although, again, not recommended that you throw it down the mountainside. It may or may not work afterwards, but it might. And this is the lens they sent me to go with the 1DX Mark II. It's the EF 100 to 400 millimeter f4.5 to 5.6 L series IS USM lens. And yes, that's a mouthful. If you don't know a whole lot about the Canon lenses, the L series are among the best ones that Canon makes, and they have this distinct red ring by the front. This one is an L series telephoto lens, so it's got the distinct white body. Now, it used to be you could look out at a big sporting event like the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Olympics. You look out and you see the white lens and you would know that person's shooting with Canon equipment. Well, a couple other camera companies realized that the white lens had become this association with quality, and so a couple of other white lenses surfaced. Well, I guess you could say imitation is a kind of flattery, right? Anyway, this guy's got quite the reach, so we didn't use it a whole lot inside in the Rev area. You want something a little more compact sometimes. You do have to be further back to get the lens to focus, but I used it a couple times to punch in on some of the signs. Canon also sent me a cinema camera, the C500, a very powerful camera. It was one of the cameras used to shoot films like Avengers Age of Ultron, Get On Up, and The Wolf of Wall Street. Now, as a side note, I hadn't seen The Wolf of Wall Street until the camera came in. I figured I'd watch it and I might be able to tie it into these videos somehow, but unfortunately it's not a film that I can recommend.
Who buys this crap? Well, I mean, honestly, mostly schmucks.
That's a whole other story though. I did not shoot the C500 at Rev, but I shot with it elsewhere. That's coming up in another video I'll be sharing. So anyway, incredible gear that Canon sent me, worth thousands of dollars. And I had a chance to test it out. I was very grateful for that opportunity. But then it does bring up a question. Why do camera tests make a video about it, make several videos about it, about equipment that's not the latest and greatest? All of those items I mentioned have newer models available. The C500 was replaced by the C500 Mark II. The EF 100mm to 400mm lens has version 2 out. And then recently, the 1DX Mark II was replaced by the 1DX Mark III in February 2020, February 14th, 2020, like a love note to Canon camera enthusiasts, I guess. Who knows? But anyway, I thought about it, and so a couple of things I wanted to share about that. First of all, the gear is more versatile than gear that I have readily available. I really like my 5D Mark IV, but the 1DX Mark II is a little more versatile in some areas. But not just that, the price of that equipment is falling as the newer models come out. The older ones depreciate a little bit, and so you might be able to find a good price for it used, or when you're renting it, it might not cost as much as getting the latest model. So there's that practical aspect. But I think there's also something to be said about appreciating what we have at hand. Instead of saying, you know, I could make something interesting if only I had the very latest model. Or I could do something interesting if only I lived in New Orleans and not Baton Rouge. I actually did go to New Orleans to shoot some of the videos, not the Rev one. But anyway, so there is that mentality that we sometimes have. If only I had this, if only I could work with this kind of actor, this talent, I might be able to do something. Instead, I'm just stuck with whatever is around me, the things I take for granted. And I don't think that's the best outlook. I think there's something to be said about appreciating what's around us, trying to make the most of the resources and the opportunities we've been given. You know, there's a story I heard that relates. It's dealing with Industrial Light and Magic, the visual effects company that's done a lot of the effects work for Star Wars, but also for so many effects-driven blockbusters. I heard this from a visual effects professional a couple years back, so maybe things have changed a little bit, but he was telling me that ILM uses Maya in their workflow, Maya being a popular computer animation program, but they weren't using the latest version of it. They were using several versions back. And he explained that was because they knew what it could do. They had written customized code so that it could respond well to their workflow. And they didn't feel the need to upgrade to the newest version because then that might break some things. So in that situation, even some of the best in the world at their craft aren't upgrading to the latest version. Not that there's anything wrong with getting the latest version. Sometimes it can make a difference. I mean, look, you're shooting the Olympics, you're shooting high pressure, a lot of dynamic color, all kinds of challenging conditions. It might help you get that one special shot or get a couple of better shots in certain conditions. So getting a nice camera, getting good equipment can help, but it's not the end-all be-all. Think about some of the great works of art that we still admire. whether it's a painting from Leonardo da Vinci, a play from William Shakespeare, a trumpet solo from Louis Armstrong. The technology used to make those things, not all that sophisticated. And yet we still revere those works of art. Getting the equipment is not the hard part. The hard part is doing the work, showing up. You know, I sometimes encounter people who are so immersed in the specifications of their equipment to such minutia. And I was wondering about those people. If they were also the people that were doing incredible work, then it would make sense. But at least in my experience, those people that were obsessing about the specifications were getting so caught up in that they weren't actually doing the work. And I thought about it. I think part of that is because doing the work, it is the hard part. It's risky. You're going to do something, it may not work. You might stumble. It might not come out as expected. You might need a finesse. In fact, a lot of times that's the norm. I mean, certainly for me, most of the things I shoot, I don't end up using. I'll do several takes of something, 3 or 4 times, or I'll try ideas. Okay, that didn't work. I couldn't find a way to use that, or that interesting, but not really fitting with what's going on. I'm not the only one. In filmmaking, you hear about the shooting ratio. How many hours of film or video did they shoot compared to the final version? And some have an incredibly high shooting ratio. I was reading about the shooting ratio on Mad Max Fury Road. Apparently they shot 480 hours of raw footage compared to 2 hours of the finished video. So that's a shooting ratio of 240 to 1. It's not just in films where that happens. Think of all the sketches that an artist might make over a lifetime before getting to the masterpiece. We don't remember them because those are usually thrown away. They're not showcased. Even the sketches are the ones that have been refined. So it's inherent to doing something creative. We're creating something new. It may be based on things we've tried before or inspiration from others, but it's still new. It's taking that experience and applying it to this very specific situation. What's going to happen? Who knows? It may not work out. What if it doesn't? What if I try and it doesn't come together? That could be discouraging. It could be. Could be frustrating. So there's something to be said about acknowledging that and embracing the uncertainty and just seeing where it goes, playing with it, trying something new just to see what comes of it. For my projects, I try to have new challenges for each project to say, okay, this is something I'm going to try. This is something I'm going to do a little differently this time. It helps me to keep pushing forward instead of just relying on the things that I've done before and following into a routine. In this case, one of the challenges I had for myself was to shoot while the restaurant or the venue was still open. I've done other commercials where we shot things, but basically shut down the place. So I shot a commercial for Zorba's Greek restaurant here in Baton Rouge. And that one, the restaurant was closed down and they came in and cooked, got some people to be part of the table, the staff and so on. So that's a little bit more involved. Not every venue is going to be able to work with that. And so it was great to be able to go in and try to have a low profile and just get what I can get. The Canon autofocus on the 1DX Mark II was quite helpful in that, because while we did have some motions that were repeated a few times, sometimes it was just a matter of getting what we could get while they were amidst a regular workday. Can lock in focus fairly quickly on the 1DX Mark II. I tried to have a low profile, so I brought in one light LED panel, battery powered, so it wasn't taking up a lot of space, less cables or something that people could trip over. I had a couple of handheld lights as well, just to do little accent spots. This is also the first time I'm making a video and also trying to tell you a little bit about what's going on, give you some behind the scenes for it. Getting ready to shoot some footage at Rev. We'll see how it goes. I'm a little nervous about this. So there was that uncertainty as well. Well, what if I try to make something and I'm telling you about it and it's terrible, right? I mean, that would not be. It's like, this is what you don't want to do. But it seemed like it came out fairly well. The Rev guys responded well to it, so that was encouraging. Okay, so a little bit more about the technical side for those of you who are curious. As I said, most of the video was shot at 120 frames per second on the 1DX Mark II, then doing some speed ramps, slowing down, speeding up certain parts in probably most of the clips. And I also shot with the 5D Mark IV. I was curious to see how that camera, my personal camera, would compare to the 1DX Mark II. The Canon 5D Mark IV that I have includes Canon Log. It's an upgrade available for the 5D Mark IV. And Log gives you more versatility when you're color grading. It's like a flatter picture profile, let's say. That's not available on the 1DX Mark II, so I loaded the CineStyle picture style. That's a free download you can get from Technicolor. They partnered with Canon to an extent to make something that's kind of sort of like Log. So they intercut pretty seamlessly. In fact, when I was editing, I couldn't tell which one was which. I had to check my notes or check the bin. Oh, right, that's the 5D one. That's the 1DX. And then I was able to use the same LUT, the same color grade, with slight variations for exposure, let's say, between the two cameras. The LUT I was using was Daniel Schiffer's vintage pack. I like the browns that seem to play nicely with the coffee. And he was an inspiration. I've watched his video that he did with Peter McKinnon, of course, some of the classic coffee shoots out there. So I try to support those who have been an inspiration. Getting his pack a while back was one way to do that. It works nicely for this. So thank you, Daniel Schiffer. I did have one or two shots where I used my GoPro, in particular this pouring shot, because, you know, Canon would probably not be thrilled to discover that I'm pouring coffee on this high-end 1DX Mark II. Although weather sealed, it might work, but I'm not going to be the guy to test it. The GoPro is designed to be shot underwater, so there's still a chance something goes awry, but I'd rather take the chance on the GoPro. And then it's smaller, it's a little nimble, you can do some moves like this one here. Okay, so that's a little bit about what went into making the Rev video. I'll be making a few more of these Canon camera test videos. So if there's something that you're curious about those cameras, that equipment, let me know and I might address it at some point. There was something else that I was wrestling with about why to make this video series. I faced some things recently that have been disheartening on a creative side, personal side, and it was discouraging. I won't get into all that here, don't worry, but it was the kind of thing that made it a little harder for me to get out of bed in the morning and try to do something positive. 'Cause it's like, man, I tried, I took a risk and it didn't work out. Why try when it might end up like that? And again, it might. That's the risk of taking on creative projects or creative challenges, or even taking risks in our own personal life. So anyway, I was wondering, well, if I try making these videos, if I try to make something notable, or just play with what I get from the Canon equipment, would that be enough to help me take on another bigger creative project that I have in the back of my mind? Well, the jury's still out on that. We'll see how it goes. I have a couple more of these Canon test videos that I want to share with you. So if you want to help me in that regard, you can like the video, share it, subscribe to the page. All those things, or any of those things, go a long way to help me continue to make videos for you. So go ahead and smash that like button. Okay, now I'm just kidding. Just trying to fit in here, guys. You don't have to smash that like button. What did that like button ever do to you? Right? It's just trying to get through the day, just trying to do its job. So, you know. But if you want to get to know the like button, spend some time hanging out, see where it goes. Correct. I mean, okay. That might be a little too much information. Good quality time together. I guess I'm all right with that. No harm, no foul.
I wish that things were different, and oh, how I wish that things could change. But I'm not 19. I'm not naive. I just wish my heart would tell my mind what to believe.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. So this is Luke. This is the guy that introduced me to Reb, at least this location. Luke is partially responsible, at least, for the video, all right? What do you have to say about that, sir?
I don't know. I didn't know I had that much influence.
Cheers.
Cheers.
A little bit of paprika, honeysuckle, and wet dog in the spring, wet dog in the summertime.